Hi, I'm Amy, and this is my husband, Greg.
That's me.
I'm Ashlyn, and I'm married to Paul.
That's me. And I'm Connell.
I'm Lauren.
So, I'm Evan.
I'm Jaden.
And I'm Brooklyn.
I'm Autumn. I'm Jensen.
Hi, I'm Madeline.
I'm Steven.
And we're the Maryons. Welcome to our large family vlog. Hey guys, hope you're having a great day today. Okay, you can see from my scenery that this is going to be for my abundant living video. So actually last time, remember, I was sitting on my sled outside, so now I'm sitting on a basketball because the boys cut the grass. I'm like, what am I going to sit on? So I just grabbed a basketball. So if I fall, I apologize. So okay, so this week I was thinking about I got paint on my hands. I was painting today. I was going through, I'm like, okay, what can we talk about? And I know it resonates with me real well because I teach at church and things, and a lot of things I was like, today I kind of was thinking about being joyful and being happy and smiling as mamas, because think about like, I gotta not fall. Think about like all the stuff that we go through in a day, and it just gets boring sometimes. It's boring, those mundane tasks. You're tired on top of it. You probably had no sleep. You're taking care of screaming children, screaming toddlers, screaming babies crying, always need to be nursing, or even school-age children, and busy. I get all that. And taking the time to smile, and how important that is. And I think about this. I remember hearing a mama talk a long time ago, and she said, just get down their level and smile. And I was like, get down their level and smile. And I'm like, okay. So it went along with being joyful and choosing happiness. And I'm like, ooh, that's what we were talking about in church with the kids. So I'm like, that is going to be a whole premises of it. We've been talking about Paul and Silas and being in prison, and still that they chose joy even though they were going through trials. And that was what drew people to Christ, was that they could see that they were going through, they were thrown in the pit of prison, and all these things were coming against them, but they were not choosing to be angry, which they very well could have been, but instead they chose joy. And so that's going to be a lot. That wasn't going to be part of my story, but that was what we were talking about church, so it worked out good that way. So I think about it, and I think like as moms, it's like we go through so much stuff together. And I know, like, you wake up and you see my videos and you think my house is clean, but I do wake up sometimes, my house is a mess. Sometimes I wake up and things are not going the way they should be going. Sometimes I wake up, I'm tired, or sometimes my kids are just not wanting to be obedient. Things happen like that. Back in the day, I would wake up and I'd come out to my kitchen and just be a disaster, and I'm like, oh my goodness, who did this? You know, or the kids would have got into something or made a mess, or you know, or whatever. Woke up and everybody's throwing up that morning. I mean, fantastic, right? So any of those things all happen to all of us mamas. And so going through all those things, sometimes it's hard to be joyful. Sometimes, and I get that it's hard to be, especially when you start looking at the bad and looking at the thing. And I've had to learn over the years. I told you, you mamas are learning from me, because I was the one that got mad, and I would blow up and get mad when I see something and get all angry. And then I'm like, but over the years I'm like, okay, it's just a mess. No big deal. It's just a mess. What happened? I was just thinking, what happened recently? Oh yeah, something happened with my child, and I normally would have just, like, back in the day, probably would have yelled at the child and got really angry because it was a big deal. And then, but this time, like when it happened, I was like, okay, so what'd you learn from this? They told me what they learned from that. I'm like, okay, so you don't do it again. And they're like, oh. I'm like, yeah, you learn not to do that. That would not be a wise decision to do, because then such thing's not going to happen. So just learned. And so my older kids just kind of looked at me like, you're not going to say anything more? And I'm like, what do you want me to do? It's not going to help to scream. What's done is done. It's not, they've learned their lesson. I mean, it's done. And so I've just learned that, you know what, some things in life are not worth like getting so upset about. I mean, nothing's really worth getting upset about. We don't really have a right to be upset about things. Sometimes we feel like we do, but most of the time it's just life happens, and guess what? You just kind of, okay, what are we gonna do? Let's just fix this and just keep moving forward. And so that's what we had to do in one of our situations. So same thing with us mamas and things that go wrong in our home. It's like, okay, even though we have such and such a plan for the day, sometimes those plans don't always, you know, get to happen in the day because of life and things that go wrong. And so it's just our job to, okay, we're just still gonna be joyful, we're still gonna be smiling. You see my days, sometimes I try to record most of my day, not just snippets, because when you see snippets and you think, oh, her life looks so great and she does all these things, and it's, but I think it's, you just get like that skewed image of like what people's lives are really like, and you think their life looks great. Well, really it's not. And so that's why I try to show you a lot of my day. So when things do get crazy, I show you, okay, this is what's happening today, or this is what's happening. So we're just gonna adapt and overcome and keep moving. And sometimes my lists don't get accomplished, and sometimes it gets accomplished and it feels good. And sometimes I have to move things from one day to the next, and there's not much, it's just, you just do it. So that's why I do what I do and share it here, because I want you to know that you just got to keep rolling with it. Just keep moving and grooving, mamas, because it does get better. It's just like tomorrow's another day. The sun comes out tomorrow, like the words of Annie, right? I would say it's gonna sunshine tomorrow. So being joyful, smiling at your kids. Take that time today, like today. Your kids are gonna drive you crazy, especially little ones that are so mommy, and they have 10,000. Bend down, get on their levels, and just smile. I remember going to like a child development class when I was younger, and the teacher had us look up. She was standing on the desk, and we had to look up at her the entire time. And she's like, "Is your neck kind of sore?" And we're like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Think of what kids feel like." That's what they feel like looking up to you. And that really stuck in my head. She also had us hold our hands straight up in the air like this for like ever. And we were like, okay, why? What does a kid feel like? And so that stuck with me. I don't know why it did. I think her name was Mrs. Cameron. I think it was Mrs. Cameron, her name was. Yes, I don't know if I'm sure she didn't watch my videos, but she was a wonderful lady. She taught me a lot about getting down on that kid's level and really focusing on them. And so I try to do that. Whenever I speak to kids, I get down on their level with them. Hey, how are you doing? Instead of just, hey, up high, because you're like a giant. So get down on their level, smile at them. Even if you don't feel like listening or paying attention, just make it make it appear that you're paying attention to them. Get on their level, smile at them, talk to them, just give them big smiles, make it look like you're paying attention to all their big stories. That just means the world to kids. It gets that confidence in them, like, wow, mama does care about me. So, okay, so this was, I was going through, because I'm going off of one of the devotions that I wrote for my blog one time, and it was, and I was reading through. Okay, so I was reading in Psalms 27. It was about David. And it was David, basically it was a summary of David's life. And David was going through many hardships in his life. He was having, like, all the things that were coming against him. He was in fear for most of his life that he was going to be killed. I mean, so much greater than I have to go through. I don't really have to fear that I'm going to be killed on a daily basis like David and had to run for my life. But I sometimes I fear, like, that I don't measure up as a wife and a mother. Do I fear that I'm gonna like screw up my kids by my parenting methods if I don't do the right one? So living by that fear is a bad thing. If you are ever living and reacting in fear, know that that is not from God, and that's something you need to change. So you have to look at David and you go, what did he rely on to get him over his fear? And it was only by the power of God. David realized that when he put his trust in the Lord, that he would see the goodness of the land and the land of the living. This is what kept him going, even when he was hunted like a wild animal. So we need to be enjoying our lives and having joy instead of walking around in fear or anger or sadness. The Bible talks a lot about having joy. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. And that's Psalm 118:24. A joyful heart is good medicine, but a crushed spirit dries up the bones. And that's Proverbs 17:22. Think about that one. If you got a joyful heart, it's good medicine. Medicine to what? Make you better, make your soul better. But a crushed spirit, it dries up those bones. It doesn't make them better, it makes them weaker. And it says, a man has joy by the answer of his mouth, and a word spoken in due season, how good it is. Proverbs 15:23. So, like you guys have always heard this, when mama ain't happy, nobody ain't happy. And that is true. We do set the tone, not in all situations, but in a lot of situations, we set the tone in the house for what it's like. If your kids are, I think Lauren said that one video, when you mamas, if there's negative attitudes in your home, check yourself and see if it's you that has the negative attitude. I know myself that I was guilty of that. I'd be like snipping my kids with my teenagers. Teenagers, they're good. They are excellent mirrors of what you are, to a degree. So your teenagers get snippy and snotty with you and get all this and that. Stop for a minute and think. Is there something that I'm doing that is the same as my teenagers doing? Sometimes it usually is a good reflection of what you've done. So I know I was there, humble myself. I get this. Sometimes I know, like even with my husband, sometimes when I'm snippy with him and I don't really think I'm being snippy, but I am because I'm still a little inside there. Oh, chances are he's gonna be snippy with me back, and I know that. But our jobs as wives and mothers and Christians and women of God is to be joyful. It says it in the Bible, to be joyful. The joy of the Lord is my strength. That's what gets us through that. So maybe, things are going on in your life. Maybe your husband is neglectful to you and you feel bitter towards him, and all you want from him is to be a better man and be a better leader. Guess what? Never going to change unless you change. You need to be joyful and show that God characteristic before he does. I know, even sometimes going through like the mundane task of life, cooking and cleaning. You see that? I do that all day long. Like my channel here is about what we do every day. it's like routine. If I just recorded, I try to record different snippets of a day, but if I record it every single day, it's pretty much the same thing. Chores, clean up, and food. We do that all day long. But sometimes it's so easy to get yourself into a rut if you're not careful. And you can be very negative, and that happens a lot. And so we gotta watch our words before you know it, because you can crush your child's spirit and lay insults to the man that we are created to be partners with. So it's so important to not get into that woe is me. I talk a lot about with Mother's Day for mamas that, and I had a lot of wonderful comments that mamas that were, you know, didn't get to have a break that day. They still dealt with screaming kids. They still had to get them ready. They still had to take care of them, and that's okay. That's okay. That's our job. That's wonderful. Just because we have a made-up holiday called Mother's Day, created by who? American Greeting Card Company, or whoever made it up. I don't know. I feel like they made it up just to make money. But that doesn't matter. Our job is still mamas. Being a mother, that is what we are called to do. And that's what we should take out with the attitude of like, this is what we are living to do. So if you have a tendency to crush your child's spirit or your husband's spirit, you know, I want you to look to God. I want you to look to God and have God help you with that. Sometimes you hear about people finding joy, but it's not that we find the joy from the Lord. Just remember that there's no pit that is so deep that God's love isn't in it. We have to choose every day who we serve. When we believe Him, then we have a cause to be joyful, because the joy of the Lord is our strength, and that's Nehemiah 8:10. So one of the good ways to do it is spending time in the Lord, and so that's what I'm going to give you as a little bit of a challenge and something that we can go through. Someone talked about doing Bible study on here, and I'm like, how can I do that? Because I don't have Facebook, I don't do all that stuff, I don't do anything extra. And I'm like, Lord, you know what? We're doing these videos on Saturday. I'm like, well, how can I do something where it's going to be an encouragement? So I'm like, why don't I just give like a lesson for you to do, and you do it, and we'll talk about it next week in our video. I'll do like a little short devotion, and then we'll talk about what we're reading. So I'm going to say simple. Let's start by reading the book of John. Let's go to book of John, okay? So all you mamas out there that want to be in, leave something in the comment. I'm in. And for the next, let's just do 5 days for the week. So today is Saturday. Go if you can do a Sunday, great, but I'll give you like a day. I figure Monday through Friday. That way, if you got extra time, you can do it on Saturday. So I want you to read 5 chapters of the book of John. So you're going to read chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, 4, and 5. It's the healing at the pool on the Sabbath is the last one. So I feel like we can get through that, and then we'll talk about it. Or I'll talk about it and you listen, maybe somebody throw some comments in there. So that is going to be what I'm going to challenge you to do. So I want you to read the book of John, chapter 1 through 5. Every day, try chapter 1 on Monday, chapter 2 on Tuesday, chapter 3 on Wednesday. I'm going to be doing that right along with you. So that's going to be my, not a challenge. It's not a challenge because it's not something like you have to grade. It's just something, let's get a habit going. Let's get in this word and let's read. I talk about how important it is to get in the word of God and to read it, and that's what helps feed you. That's your medicine. That's going to help you grow in your faith so much so, you know what better way? Let's get into it and just read it right now. We'll start the book of John. We'll start going every week that I do this. I'll give you 5 more every single week to keep doing. In a year's time, we'll get really well through the book of the Bible. So does that sound good? Okay, I'm excited. If you're in, leave a thing in the comment section below. I guess you can do that. So just remember that you are the most joyful person in your home, and it will have an impact on your child and in your home. And if you don't believe me, just try it, because you'd be surprised how catchy it would be. Try being joyful no matter what around your husband, around your kids. When they do something wrong, instead of like yelling at them, just kind of laugh, kind of smile. Okay, whatever, let's just keep going. You make a huge impact in your home. So, okay, so a little bit shorter, a little bit sweeter this week. So I'm encouraging you to read John chapter 1 through 5 this week, and I'm gonna be reading along with you, and then we'll talk about it next Saturday, okay? So you guys have a fantastic, fantastic Sunday tomorrow with your family, and I will see you guys on Monday. Okay, bye.